Hey everybody, happy Friday. So I was home today. Well, today we didn't have school because it was report writing day. It's one day they give us on Memorial Day weekend. So anyway, did I get some work done? Yes, I absolutely did. Did I get good news today? Yes. Um, but that's not the point of this video. So I wanted to address or just talk about what I've been seeing a lot lately on TikTok, and I'm seeing a lot anyway, and that is these denunciations, renunciations of Divine Nine organizations, black sororities and fraternities, and the recently resurfaced renunciation of Spelman College by a young woman on YouTube that's been getting more attention lately. But nevertheless, we'll get into it, and we'll get into her in a second. So let me just say this. I'll be very upfront. These D9 renunciations and denunciations, the reason why I don't really fuck with them like that is I never thought those explanations for leaving those sororities and fraternities, and there are men who people keep saying it's more sorority, and it has been, but I've heard men say these kind of things too. In the name of their religion, they walk away. And to me, those conversations never seem substantive at all for me. And I was just like, okay, you left this organization because it doesn't match your religious principles. I don't give a fuck. Okay. I am somebody who has never tried to be in a sorority, never wanted to be in one. But let me also be clear about my background and where I'm coming from. My father is a college educated man, PhD in philosophical theology, has been a preacher. My whole life was a preacher before I was born. Like, got called into ministry at 17, 18. And he's also been a pastor my whole life. People think being a preacher and a pastor are the same thing. No, you can preach the word of God and not be in charge of the institution of a church. Okay? And my father's been both of those things my entire life. My father was not a prosperity, is not a prosperity preacher. Okay? So even when I heard things like, oh yeah, the preacher steal the money, this and the other, and I'd be sitting there thinking to myself, you don't know how much my parents sacrifice. How much goes into, how much I don't get. Because my father was the kind of man who would not preach about money. Okay? And now, clearly, I'm not called to preach, but I'm just making a point. Okay? So when I would hear that, I'm like, where do people fucking get that from? There were times my father went without getting paid when I was growing up to make sure the church had what it needed. And I say that to say, I also grew up in a very religious home. I am African American. I am, like I need to tell y'all, I was raised in the National Baptist tradition, which I know has its issues with sexism as I study more and more history, but that was the tradition I grew up in. And a Baptist, a Southern Baptist and a Baptist from the South are not the same thing. I'm a Black Baptist from the South and part of the National Baptist tradition. My father was a member of the Divine Nine. I don't want to get too far into that, but he was definitely one of the main ones, okay, in terms of the top organizations. So I'm not even saying this on the strength of any of that. My explanations behind not fucking with the D9 is not because, oh, I think God is going to punish you, okay? Period. All right? My reasoning and my disdain for it, and I have my own disagreements, and, you know, me and my father disagreed on it, but that's whatever. Fathers and daughters disagree on stuff. Mothers and daughters disagree on stuff. Whatever. My mother's not a part of a sorority. But because I believe that it promotes classism and elitism in the black community, and I think that's the last thing the black community needs. Now, the way I described it, coming into college in my high school years, the way I would describe it was I didn't like, what would I say? That they exclude poor people and that you have to be super educated. Because on the other hand, my mother is a high school graduate who was unable to finish community college. She had to take care of her father. But all five of us, all five of her children, all 2 years apart, are all college graduates. And 4 out of 5 of us have advanced degrees. So I can tell you this. My mother was married to my father. Okay? And they were different people with different kinds of perspectives on life, and they were married over 30 plus years before they broke up. Okay, so I'm putting that out there. All right? So I want to make sure I'm clear and that I've seen both things. But one of the things my father both my parents always taught us was about being proud to be black. And what it means to be black is to also help serve other people, i.e. my father not getting paid to make sure the church went on and to help other people. Okay? I'll give my opinions about that to my therapist, not to y'all. Anyway, but in order to push for black liberation, as people have found out with the Haitian Revolution, with the breakdown of South African apartheid, with our struggles here in the U.S., when you leave out a group, okay, the black middle class, the black upper middle class, does that all the time, trying to prove they're not like other black people by having these elitist organizations that they can keep other people out of. And I always resented that. I did. And so when I was in college and hearing people, oh yeah, I'm doing this because of service. First of all, we were required to do community service those first 2 years of Spelman College. You did not need a sorority. Just say you want social capital, you want attention, you want to be able to marry a man within those organizations, as if that wouldn't be possible without it, but whatever. You want a certain appearance. You did not need to join that to do service. Cut it out. There were organizations at Spelman that were just for community service, and you didn't join. Like, the bullshit, okay? And those organizations like Jack and Jill, where, elite black people or elitist black people basically, had their kids in these organizations. One person told me that their mother wasn't allowed to join Jack and Jill because she was not married when she had her. She had been divorced. And she was a doctor, a whole ass doctor. That's what I mean, right? But it's this idea of those black people. So in the idea of being a regular black person, you're a woman who has a baby without a husband. Suppose that motherfucker was beating the shit out of her. Like, you see what I mean? It's always about this fucking fake appearance, and I resent that. And I resent that, and then they only want their kids to be around certain kinds of black people. So they understand they're black because they still exist in this world. Because if you were so above black people and you weren't black like other people, then maybe you could go and join one of those white social organizations where they have their debutantes and shit. But see, your black ass can't. So you want to come over here and fuck with your own people like that, and you can kiss my ass for that. Now, see, if people say that's why I renounce, then see, I could respect that. I could rock with that. But all it is trying to pull out Bible verses, this, that, and the other. Well, baby, I'm sure you do plenty of other stuff that ain't got nothing to do with it. With the Bible, I mean. So don't just be cherry picking. That's what I think. And I'm all for black liberation. And the way you do that is you find the core of people. Actually, no, not the core. The people who are at the very lowest rung in society and work your way up. We saw what happens when you leave black women out or isolate them in the civil rights movement and not deal with poverty and turn your back on Martin Luther King when he was dealing with it and going against the Vietnam War. You trying to go along with administration. Hello, somebody who needs to look in the mirror and realize Joe Biden, even though he's a war criminal, and we know Trump is too, with his 88 federal indictments and counting. And that's just, but we're going to stick to us. We're going to stick to us over here. Fuck y'all. Okay. Delta Sigma Theta telling people when they were marching in Black Lives Matter, they couldn't wear their paraphernalia. That's some sellout shit. To see if somebody said that, see, then I could rock with it. But see, that ain't what I hear. Now, if somebody said, and I brought this up before, that VH1 reality show called Sorority Sisters, and they had the people from Delta, AKA, and they was battling. They had one little white girl in there that was a Delta, and it was just all, whatever. And they pulled the plug on that show. They had to hurry up and show, like, them episodes, like, in a night after a couple of weeks. Because the people in the Divine Nine wanted it pulled. They said that was a bad representation of their organizations. These same people I watched from afar on the on panels when they were talking about it, and they were like, well, that's a bad representation of organizations and the other. And somebody posed a question and said, well, what about Love and Hip Hop? And they were like, well, I do watch it, but I enjoy it for what it is, ratchet TV. You want to know why? Because the attitude was, I don't give a fuck about these sorry Negroes who are making fools of themselves on TV. Because, see, I'm not like them anyway. But when you start messing with my ability, or what I perceive as my ability to move up a social ladder, then all of a sudden it's a fucking problem. And then people from Alpha Phi Alpha, Omega Psi Phi, Delta Sigma Theta, Alpha Kappa Alpha, the SG Road chicks and all this other stuff, and the Kappas, if y'all can pull a plug on a TV show like that, all y'all came together for that. All y'all can't come together using that same fucking power to fuck over Lululemon and the way they treating black people? All y'all motherfuckers couldn't come together for the mothers who are seeing their children get murdered down like dogs by the fucking police? Because, see, you don't value that. So you can kiss my ass. Now, see, if somebody said that, see, I could still rock with it. But when you get to doing all these Bible verses, and it was just to me like, okay, renounce it, I get it. But see, you don't want nobody else to be in it either. Now, when somebody says things like, it's a cult, well, you make a good argument. Even my own brother said, well, yeah, there's a whole lot of cult-like things. All the rituals, and, if you leave, then people get mad. And, I mean, like, when you renounce. Like, the reason why people have all these reaction videos to the D9, this, that, and the other, is part of what they're protecting. This organization that many of them experienced hazing, that some of them are so brainwashed they don't even consider hazing. Let's see, if you came out and told those stories, I could rock with it. But it just seems like they always go back. And there was one person I did see on TikTok, a young woman, and she went to Howard and she was explaining how they got accused of hazing and they really didn't. And the organization the national headquarters really didn't work at it with them. And so she was just like, even after there was nothing found in that investigation, they wanted me to reapply. And she was like, I wasn't doing that. And she said, but most people who join it, and she was, explaining to her family, people have legacy and they don't like to say they have legacy, but a lot of the people who have it, that's why they do it. And then other people do it for the social capital. But see, I rocked with that. I rocked with her video because she was being very honest. She was like, I'm not telling you not to join it. I'm just telling you why I left it. And she said it was because of that, because I needed to go on with other parts of my life. She was like, I still met people in those organizations that were good friends of mine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she wasn't substantive critiques. Okay? Not trying to throw the Bible at me. All right? Because some of y'all be out there. Now, I am grateful for the kind of person I am. And I'm, still growing through that. Because I have always been a loner. And I came from a big family. So the need to have people around me, I always kind of had that. But I was always like a popular learner. Like, people were always like watching me and talking about me and still, and I'm like, I don't even bother nobody. Just leave me the fuck alone. Let me read my books. But I remember even watching people that I knew in college. You weren't about to have me running around in triangles all over Spelman College's campus or turning me out or so I could walk around in some colors and wear heels that were hurting my feet while I wore my line jacket and maybe get to have a boyfriend who was a Sigma or a Kappa or a Q. Like, you wasn't about to do that to me. And I remember one of my friends, she was trying so hard to become an AKA. It was very important for her to appear high maintenance or whatever. And I remember, she hadn't talked to me in a while, I guess, because she was trying to pledge, so she couldn't talk to, people like me. And I was the kind of person, if they was having those big probates, I would, when I tell you, I'd be happy because that meant nobody was in the computer lab. I'd be like, yes, I hope y'all stay out there with all the ignorance. And I remember I was walking across and she was like, oh, Salai, you going to the AKA probate? And I was like, what? And she was like, first of all, because she hadn't talked to me in months. And I was like, no. I said, of course not. Why would you think that? Right? Which that was kind of mean. I ain't had to do it like that, but whatever. And she was like, well, because her friend was talking too, and she was like, well, I still have to go because they were like, that's how you show your interest or whatever. First of all, she hadn't even told me she was trying to pledge like that. She had mentioned it, and then I just, of course, caught on. And I said, no, I'm going to the science center because that was where the computer lab was. And she was like, oh, well, I still have to go sit through. I said, oh, okay, well, have fun. And I was just like, fuck these bitches. These bitches done treated you like shit, and this is how you act. Like, I just can't. I can't. And there was a lot of people in those organizations that I just did not like as humans. There was a lot of people in those organizations, and I still remember the texts, the panic emails of girls who didn't speak to me in class and had known me freshman year, but then needed my help with finals or had to write a paper. And some of these people were like 2 years ahead of me in college. Like, I was like, ooh. Did I help them? Some of them. I did, some of them. The ones that was like decent and like older, and they probably had done horrible things, but not to me. So I kind of felt like, yeah, I see you all around campus, but you kind of nice to me. And at the same time, if I don't like your character, I'll help you get up out of here, girl. I'll help you. I got this. I'll help you. Anyway, but y'all can't be mad at nobody for renouncing it. And at the same time, y'all people who renounce it, y'all, what? Some of this is just for attention too. And this is how I know some of y'all have not really exposed yourselves. Because this whole idea of the Divine Nine is so evil. Ain't none of y'all motherfuckers said, and this is how I know y'all's world is small. Yeah, of course we know more about black people because we are black. Y'all ain't saying about Skull and Bones and how many of your presidents. Yes, yeah, I bet you some of y'all like, what's Skull and Bones? Exactly. That Ivy League fraternity that many of your presidents have been a part of. Some who have run Democrat, some who have run Republican, and trust and believe Barack Obama is not one because their organization stays secret. And let me tell you something else with Skull and fucking Bones. Regardless of their party, they're still all a part of the same fucking elite circle. And think about the way they cover for each other. In terms of the crimes they commit, not just across the world, but the kind of crimes they've committed against women, the rape accusations against multiple presidents. Take it or leave it. You can look it up. But that kind of shit. Nevertheless, speaking of religious stuff, now I want to make sure that I'm clear and fair. Okay? So it has been getting some renewed attention. A young woman's video. I remember showing up in my timeline, but I wasn't clicking on it. Months ago. A young woman by the name of Angelise, who renounced Spelman College. And people were like, see, that's what I told y'all. When they started all this D9 renunciation, they're going to start renouncing all these different organizations because this has been like, it just seems to be overflow maybe in the past several weeks. Okay, first of all, this young woman, in fairness, did this video back in January 2024. So don't act like it's a reaction to the D9 videos. Calm down. Those of you trying to protect these, relax. Okay, and I know what it is to be attached to something and want to protect it. I graduated from Spelman College. I cannot tell you the amount of hate I got just for saying I went to Spelman College. By other black people, by other black women, by other black men. I mean, there were people that said to me, yeah, y'all have a reputation of being bitches. And even in college, I would always, not only was I offended that you even thought that was appropriate, and I'm talking about a black guy that said this to me, but my thing is, that's not what y'all say about the girls that go to Wellesley, and you would never address a white woman like that. And I'm not saying everybody goes there as white, but I'm making a point. The majority of people there are white. That's not what you say about the chicks at Smith. That's not what you said. You say about the girls at Wellesley Smith, Bryn Mawr. You don't do that. Because there's something about the concentration of smart, focused, young black women that incurs the ear of people in a white supremacist society. How dare you, as a black person, oh, they're bougie, they're this. Yeah, some of them are. I don't know how that equates to being degraded and called the B word. You don't have to like them, but you feel comfortable disrespecting black people. But really the attitude is, whether people express it directly or not, is how dare you, as a black woman, be smart, be educated, be driven, and God forbid, unapologetic about it, to the male ego or to the white world. Fuck you, black bitches. In the words of Audre Lorde, the term black bitch just never seems to go out of style. So let me tell you something. I'm not saying Spelman College is perfect. God knows it is not close to it. Will I say that was the best decision I could have ever made? Yes. And it was exactly what I needed for that time of development in my life from age 18 to 22. Even stuff that got on my nerves, like study all this women's studies stuff as black women. I didn't even like learning all that stuff. I liked history, but I was kind of annoyed with it. And a lot of people in women's studies I just didn't like. It is what it is. I found them annoying. But when I got to UCLA and I was a black woman with no black people around, and the black people that I did meet had no black conscience, I had the things in my reserves because I was forced to learn them, to where I could have these real intellectual arguments. Because unfortunately, as a black person, sometimes you have to argue for your right to exist and against these white supremacist ideas that everybody else is holding up as you try to chip away at it. Okay? All right. So, baby girl, I was trying to figure out what time she was there from 2012 to 2016. Did I watch that whole video? No. But I got the gist. So she gives a background that she grew up in church, but she's been walking with God more closely lately. Like she, you know, kind of one of those people that grew up in church, but, you know, what had gotten away from religion. I don't know, something like that. And then she was like, she's been walking with God real deeply. It went from 5 years to 6 years, all in a minute and 42 seconds. But okay, girl, okay. If you, all right. Now, like I said, to be sure, this is getting attention, but it's been up since January 2024. All right. So she's gone through, she explains in the video, she went through some recent events that led her to rededicate her life and focus to God. Good. Did we need to know that? Well. And apparently God has been, this is according to her, while we're talking about, you know, denunciations of black organizations, because that seems to be where the focus is. And the reason why, and I want to just slip this in too, when we talk about the D9, the difference is when we start talking about denouncing those sororities, black sororities and fraternities are what they are. You involve yourself with it for life. White fraternities and sororities, that's really not what it is. It's for college. Like, even when I've taught African American history and sometimes white students will ask me, like, well, what's the big deal? Like, why does that keep coming up? And I have to explain to them, you know, there's these national black women's organizations, like the National Council of Negro Women, you know, and they're like, why does the sororities in front of, I was like, because it keeps coming up because it's part of life. So that's an organizing tool. But anyway, so she says God's been revealing all these things in her life or whatever and uncovering things for her. And one of the things he revealed is that she made a demonic covenant with Spelman College. Let me tell y'all something. Some of y'all throw these words like demonic and evil just around, and it's just kind of given, that's a little extreme. Now, granted, I can't tell you how to feel, because I don't know all that happened to you at Spelman. But baby, a demonic covenant, and all I could think was whatever this fucking covenant is, as a magna cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa graduate of the class of 2010 at Spelman College, I can honestly say, baby girl, I don't know what the fuck you were talking about. I don't know what kind of covenant you made. Now, if we want to talk about demonic covenants, if you wanted to get me in on your argument, you should have said you made a demonic covenant with Sally Mae, okay, with Nabian, okay, with the government and their federal laws. Now, see, if you just said that to me, then I could rock with it. Same thing with if you come to me with something substantial. But see, y'all playing, baby. And I did all the orientation events, even them, you know, busting down your doors to call you in the chapel to say your names to the ancestors, and getting a little lost on the way back to the dorm and shit. Yeah, I went through that. And I remember when they came, opening up the doors, and I opened it, and the girl was like, y'all gotta come. And I remember I was tired, okay, because they have you going. And I looked up and I was like, seriously, do we really have to do this? And I will never forget, because she was like a senior or whatever. And she looked at me and she goes, I mean, no. She was like, but you'll appreciate it after it's done. And I was like, okay. And every time I saw her after orientation and throughout that freshman year at Spelman, because she had graduated, she was, like I said, she was a senior. And she would always speak and she was always nice. And I was like, okay. Like, so to say, like, and granted, that may not be everybody's experience, but I can talk about mine. And I can say that was not the case. And she, it was just ritual, tradition, whatever. There were plenty of people who in orientation said to me, I stay right in my bed, okay? So we're not going to act like somebody dragged you out by your arms and legs. Girl, bye. All right. 2012, 2016. Okay, so she made a remark that Spelman, this is what she did. And I was like, oh, okay. Claims to be, this is what she did, to be one of the most illustrious black female colleges in the nation. I'm going to tell you, let me stop, why I didn't appreciate her saying that. Not just because of the quotation marks, like, yeah, I guess. But when you said black female colleges, I said, boo, boo. Okay, first of all, there are only 2 black female colleges in the nation. And that's Spelman College and Bennett. And we all know that Spelman is the one that matters. I don't care, okay? Which is actually, Bennett is actually Morehouse's sister school, and it wasn't always a female college. It was a co-ed school, but whatever. So if you wanted to say it's supposed to be this illustrious, Spelman is supposed to be one of the most illustrious among women's colleges, or even better, liberal arts colleges, or HBCUs across the nation. See, I could rock with that, but see, you didn't do it. All of y'all keep falling short, all right? See, that's a compliment, comparing us to the women's colleges, the liberal arts colleges, the HBCUs, whatever, private institutions. What you did was a failed read based on your lack of knowledge of the institution you attended for 4 years, and clearly somebody missed maybe one too many convocations. Okay, but I'm not going to read you that hard, girl. I'm really not. So she didn't want to make this, she claimed she didn't want to make this video, but her obedience to God is the most important thing in her life. And once again, God told her to. I can't tell you what God tells you. Moving on. So she cites the fact that our school motto, it was removed, okay, at Spelman to be more inclusive. So Spelman's school motto is our whole school for Christ. And she said it was removed to make other religions feel more comfortable. And this is part of her whole creation of the concept that there was a demonic covenant at Spelman. And she said then it was changed to a choice to change the world. So just so I didn't make myself look stupid in this video, I did go back and check. Because I was like, since when is the motto not our whole school for Christ? And I have no problem with people feeling more comfortable or whatever. But people go to Catholic institutions like Notre Dame and they're Muslim or atheists or not religious, and they go and get their education and go right on about their business. The same thing with Brandeis. So we don't have to do all that. Okay, the school motto is still our whole school for Christ. The school tagline is a choice to change the world. Okay? Now, I can't account for whether or not they still sold that in the bookstore or whatever during her time there. But according to Spelman College, their motto is still our whole school for Christ. And the tagline is a choice to change the world. And that's what's on, the logo and stuff like that. Okay. All right. You can go look it up. Like I said, I went and checked just in case. So I also had a roommate that was kind of like her, or like what she is now at least. We were roommates until about November of 2006. And the school year started in October. I mean, not October, Lord have mercy, August 2006. She was super religious. Okay. Now, like I told you at the beginning of this video, I grew up with a father who was a preacher and pastor, who was a preacher and pastor before I was even born, and still is, because as far as I was taught, like all these people who say, yeah, I was a preacher, for a few years, I don't even understand that mentality. And I'm not going to seek to, other than the fact that you were probably not called, and you called yourself into the ministry for whatever reason. Because I was always taught that a calling is something you don't control. God tells you, and God sends people to preach, and you got to die with your boots on, preaching the word of God if that's what he told you to do. So that's how I was raised. I had a roommate that hated that I watched Flavor of Love, and you know that was the show then. She hated that I listened to Beyonce, and y'all know I was a Beyonce fan from way back in the back. And the Destiny's Child album, even the Destiny Fulfilled album, girl, that's a grown woman's album. She would do stuff like pray out loud at night and stuff like that, and I tried to ignore it. I let it go, but we got into it a few times, and I ended up moving next door because I had made friends with a girl next door, and her roommate never showed up. But she told me I could stay, and they moved our room or whatever, so nobody had to. It wasn't like a whole ass switch or anything like that. But when I moved out, y'all, I don't even like to tell this story because I know y'all gonna laugh at me. The walls, were thin, as they are in many dorms across the campus. And I moved my stuff out while she wasn't there. I didn't want to create a scene. I just wanted to get away from her crazy ass. And I had, just a few friends help me move my stuff real quick while she wasn't there or whatever. Because even though I had been given permission to move, I just didn't want a thing, right? Girl, when she got back that night, and I know, because see, I was in my room studying, and I had already started to move some of my stuff in there anyway. She came back in. Why am I whispering this? I'm so embarrassed by it. Praising God that he had removed me out of her life. Thank you, God. She's finally out the room. Like, I heard her whole prayer. Now, see, now how was that Christ-like? You ain't have to... Girl, you ain't have to do all that. And see, this girl reminds me of her. Okay? And this girl, she was out there. So, I'm cringing because I remember during orientation, the same roommate that was super religious, didn't want to play by love, whatever, decided she was going to, I don't want to say decided. I mean, she had been a cheerleader in high school, and so she said she wanted to be a cheerleader in college. I was like, oh, okay. Now, it did seem weird to me because how extremely religious she was, and I was just like, well, cheerleaders walk around in short skirts or whatever, this, that, and the other. Well, she came back. Now, I do remember this. Because we were in the CAF or something, and she had come sit near me, and she had said, I tried out for the cheerleading team. I said, oh, okay. How'd it go? And she was like, well, I told the coaches that I disagree with the fact that our motto is our whole school for Christ, and y'all are doing all of these I can't remember the exact words she used, suggestive dances and short skirts, and this is what y'all shouldn't be doing. Now, granted, do I think cheering and twerking in a short skirt is for the glory of the kingdom? No, but these people didn't claim to be doing that for the glory of the kingdom. And you could have chosen, after you found that out, to either walk out those tryouts or do the tryout and never come back again, okay? I was like, baby girl, why are you engaging in this? They have a whole ministry program for people like you who want to do this stuff and want to be separate. Like, you can actually do that. Talk about crazy. Okay, so anyway, Angelique's homegirl on YouTube said she was pointing to the departing ceremony, which is basically where your family is around you at orientation. The first day they drop you off, your family kisses you, they love you. I know, I cried, and I only lived an hour away from campus. Oh my gosh, that was such a pussycat. And they're playing the African drums, and she was like, well, they poured out libations and this, that, and the other, and they poured out to the ancestors. I was like, bitch, are you for real calling it demonic? First of all, wasn't nobody out there talking to ghosts. Wasn't no haints. Wasn't nobody up here waiting for somebody to come down from the heavens. Girl, quit playing with me. Okay, they played them African drums, and they killed that shit. I ain't gonna lie. And and then they send you in the sister's chapel with your classmates, your sisters, you're going to the year with, whatever. It's a ceremony. And I'm saying this as somebody, like I said, practicing Christian, National Baptist, and my faith is too strong to be feeling like, oh, those people did something demonic. No, they didn't. Wasn't nobody asking you to come join. And the way they was killing that drum circle, they don't want nobody who can't dance that shit right anyway. Okay, anyway, so then she talks about the wake-up ceremony. Like I told y'all, the fact that was even on the agenda for them in 2012 is hilarious to me, because everything I heard about the wake-up, banging on the doors and stuff, my sister was at Spelman. She didn't even tell me. I don't think she wanted to ruin it for me. And like I said, that girl was like, no, not really. anyway, and that's really what made me get up and get it. And you know, you go to Sister's Chapel, you say your name, where you're from, and at the end, you say something like, I don't know, something about Spelman women. You know, like I said, it was 3:00 in the morning, I was half asleep. And she was like, the demonic time of 3 a.m. and this, that, and the other. I was like, girl, the amount of energy you giving the devil, and you supposed to be representing Christ, I'm going to need you to do better. And like my parents always taught me, your Christianity is not defined by what you don't do, but by what you do for Christ. So talking about all the things you don't do is not the move, okay? So then she gets to her experience in Spelman, talking about I thought she was going to say, you know, there was a bunch of bitchy girls and they hurt me, this, that, and the other. Now see that? Once again, if you would have said stuff like that, see, I could have rocked with it. I could have totally understand how you felt out of your element. Because anybody that did not experience that at Spelman is the one perpetuating it. Anyway, she was like, well, I barely graduated or whatever. I went from like a 2.4 to a 2.7. And I was like, okay. Look, she struggled at Spelman by her own admission. I'm not making this up. She said she left the biology major to change to psychology. And I was like, okay, all right. She said she struggled academically, and that happens when you go to college. Sometimes you do pick the wrong major. Sometimes you do need to readjust your study habits, you know. But I don't see how this is demonic. Oh, don't worry. She's going to bring it back now. She said she didn't pledge a sorority. But this is what she said. She said, thank Jesus. My GPA was too low. Baby, you saying that over a decade later, thank Jesus that your GPA was too low to pledge a sorority. So I guess God is the reason why your grades were low, or you saying you're not trying to exalt yourself, but you got A's and B's in high school, and then all of a sudden when I'm at Spelman, I did so bad. And she was like, I did study abroad for a semester, and then she took it back. She was like, no, for a summer. And I got all A's there. And then even after Spelman, when I went back to school, I got A's there. So I was like, okay. I was like, but a summer study abroad is not the same as a semester long anything. And lots of people, when they go abroad, have much higher grades than they did back in Spelman. Okay, I'm not saying that they all didn't earn them, but I'm saying whatever it was abroad was not the same. Let's just keep it real. So sometimes you pick the wrong major and struggle. It also sounded like to me, sometimes you have to go in, or in my case, always. My mother always taught me, I don't care how smart you think you are, how much you know, how much you've accomplished. Just know there's always somebody smarter than you. There's always going to be somebody with more accomplishments than you. And you have to keep working to be your best for the rest of your life. Yes, because you're black. Yes, because you're a black woman. But also because that's just the way life works. And if you want to be competitive in this world, you have to keep going. So when I went into college, the one thing I did know, I learned about myself before I went to college, was that information didn't really click for me automatically. The grades I got, I always had to study hard and work hard for them. I wasn't somebody who picked up stuff easily, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful to God that I learned that about myself and that I did struggle, because the difference with me is I knew how to struggle and tough it out. You know, I didn't have parents who gave me excuses. I mean, you know, certainly helped me, or, you know, sent me to a math tutor when I was struggling. Like, I was very blessed to have that. But not because when I walked into college, I was like, oh yeah, my grades are already good. I was already who's who, this, that, and the other. I knew that everything had started over again, and I was going to have to prove myself. And the way I needed to prove myself by having relationships with my professors so they could write me recommendations so I could get internships over the summer was to bust my ass and to stay in their face. That was the advice I got from my parents. That was the advice I got from people at church, and I stuck with it. And it worked. Okay? And sometimes you do have to work harder. Sometimes you do have to push harder. And she really sounded like somebody who had done well, you know, at a high school level, and just kind of felt like then that should translate in every environment. And it does not. But she basically said this was because, and she said she had gotten good. And I was thinking to myself, well, that's probably true. Because I know my grades at UCLA when I went to work on my PhD, I got my master's and PhD. My master's through my PhD. It wasn't a separate program. My grades at UCLA were always ridiculously high. I had never gotten that many A's in my life. And this was quarter system. I was busting my ass. My migraines were killing me. And I was still working hard. Now, were there times at Spelman that I felt like my grades were unfair? Sure. And they were. Okay? Were there times where I felt like I should have gotten an A instead of an A minus? Or an A instead of a B plus? And a professor who was on top of, yes. There were those times. But whatever the case was, I can tell you that when I got to UCLA, I was prepared and far more prepared than any of those people I had met from Berkeley, than I had met from Stanford, than I had met from all these other places. I had the capability to excel because of how hard people pushed me. And I know if I had gone to a school like UCLA undergrad, I would have fallen by the wayside. I mean, kids fall by the wayside all the time. It's just too many people. And I had people that really focused on me and helped hone me into the kind of scholar I was trying to be. And so I was like, yeah, you probably did do better. When she said, baby, but let me tell you something. See, that's a long, substantial explanation for something that didn't even deserve it. When she said I was in real estate school and I did everything good, I said, wait a minute. baby, back it up, rewind, and press play. You aware? When she said real estate school, I said, so you took classes in real estate. No tea, no shade. I think real estate, we all will need a real estate. Well, not we all, because the way the economy's going, we probably ain't going to need a real estate agent because ain't nobody going to be able to afford a house. But you get what I'm saying. That's a different kind. People can take classes and become a certified real estate agent. And she basically compared her summer study in real estate school as proof that having done well in those environments, that it was her demonic covenant that kept her grades low at Spelman. No, baby, it may have been them study habits. You may have been going through something very personal, but I need you to reevaluate the way you're seeing this. Okay, I'm just, I'm sorry. People can take real estate classes. You can sign up and pay. Like, it's not like, oh, it's a super competitive process. I'm not trying to take anything away from her accomplishments, but it doesn't equate with what she was trying to make it equate with. Anyway, then she starts talking about praying a renunciation prayer. I was like, if anybody sound a little off, it's you, darling. She was like, if you went to Spelman, and probably if you went to Morehouse, if you went to Hampton, if you went to Howard, y'all have all engaged in demonic covenants, all these HBCUs, demonic covenants. And I said, okay, so this is really about an issue of self-hatred and anti-blackness. Have you been to these other schools and the kind of hazing that is involved? There's a whole lot of fucked up shit going on around here, but what we not gonna do is do this wild shit. It's giving ignorance. It's giving I'm out in Mars even though I'm on Earth, but my brain is on Mars. And it just, what? So she was like, there's a letter that you can send to renounce yourself from a demonic covenant with these organizations and institutions. I said, girl, are you trying to renounce your degree? Now, I get your grades weren't what you thought they should be, but you're going to renounce your degree. I'm going to tell you what I renounce. Student loans, okay? Money, all right? What you mean you going to denounce? And I was like, why? If I got that letter in the mail, I'd be looking like, huh? And I also wouldn't care because at this point, it's like, and you know, sometimes people go on these religious extremes for many reasons. But sometimes something very traumatic has happened to them. Something that has broken them down psychologically. And so the way they try to get control is to hone into religion so tough. And I'm sitting up here like, girl, I am a black woman who graduated from Spelman College. Okay, I appreciate my experience, the good and the bad, because it taught me a lot of lessons. I'm a history teacher. That may not sound fancy to people, but I see it as a form of activism and an opportunity to educate, and I'm proud of that. And I'm somebody who's a practicing Christian, and I love science fiction. I love reading history. I love Afrofuturism. I'm all here for that stuff. It's like when the Catholic, all the religious people were against Harry Potter. And even my father, even when we were kids, he was just like, that's so anti-intellectual. You read everything you can get your hands on. And baby, I'm just telling you, because I'm not trying to give you too much, because I know it's resurfaced, and now people are trying to act like, oh, she produced this. Now the D9 is going down. No, she was doing her little thing before. But girl, you out there. So that's my piece. And if you want to know more about why I believe in classism, and I'm against classism and elitism, even though I didn't read this until later, Our Kind of People is very eye-opening. They was after Lawrence Otis Graham with the pitchforks, God rest his soul. I think he died 2021. So it's pretty recent, but he wrote on this stuff, and I had been, like I said, I'm a historian. I study this stuff. So I know what it represents, and that's just my opinion. I have friends in sororities. I'm not interested in being a part of one, but y'all gonna have to be more substantial so I can rock with it. Anyway, in the spirit, though, of being diverse, I'm a historian, but I will be watching Love During Lockup tonight, so I'll see y'all later. Bye.